Do dogs feel jealous? The science behind canine behavior. Have you ever hugged someone and your dog suddenly jumped in between? Or maybe you were petting another animal and suddenly your dog squeezed in, asking for attention? Is that jealousy? Or just your imagination? Today, you are going to discover the scientific truth behind one of the most frequently asked questions by dog owners around the world. Do dogs feel jealous? The answer might surprise you. So stay with me until the end because in addition to the explanation, I'm going to show you 5 clear signs of canine jealousy that you may have never noticed before. 1. What is jealousy? Before we talk about dogs, we need to understand what jealousy really is. Jealousy is one of the most complex emotions in human behavior. It involves an intense mix of insecurity, fear, attachment, and emotional self-preservation. We feel jealous when we perceive or believe that we might lose the attention, love, or space someone holds in our lives. It's as if an invisible threat appears between us and what we value. Now let's pause and reflect. Have you ever felt jealous of someone? Of a friend who started giving more attention to someone else? Of a partner who complimented someone different? Or even of a younger sibling who stole the family spotlight for a while? Exactly. Jealousy isn't just about romantic love. It's about fear of exclusion, fear of being forgotten, and above all, the desire to preserve emotional bonds we consider important. But now comes the key question. Can dogs, being so different from us, also feel something like that? The answer may seem unlikely at first. After all, dogs don't speak, don't write, don't reason like we do. They don't have existential awareness like humans. They don't compare themselves to other dogs by scrolling through an Instagram feed. And theoretically, they don't plan the future or dwell on the past. But that doesn't mean they don't feel. And that's where everything changes. Dogs live in the present, intensely. And in that present, they develop deep bonds with their humans. They recognize your scent, your voice, your habits, your touch. You are the center of a dog's world. You are their source of food, safety, affection, routine, comfort, and love. Now imagine what might go through a dog's mind when suddenly their human starts giving attention to someone else or another animal. Imagine seeing affection that was once theirs being given to another. Imagine that sweet tone of voice they love being used with someone different. Even if they don't understand rationally what's happening, they feel the change. They feel the imbalance. They feel the momentary loss of attention. And that's when they react. That reaction might come in the form of barking, jumping, interrupting, whining, or even aggression. And behind all of it might be a feeling very similar to ours. Jealousy. Modern science has been trying for years to understand if canine jealousy is a complex emotion like ours, or just an instinctive reflection of attachment and competition for attention. But one thing is already clear to specialists. Dogs behave differently when they feel their bond with their human is being threatened. And that reaction does, in fact, resemble what we call jealousy. So maybe your dog isn't being spoiled, needy, or dramatic. Maybe they're just saying, in their own way, I don't want to lose you. If you're enjoying this content, leave a like so our channel can grow on YouTube and create more interesting videos for you. 2. Science responds. For a long time, the idea that dogs could feel jealousy was met with skepticism by scientists. That's because jealousy, as we've seen, is a complex emotion, one that involves social judgment, self-awareness, and even anticipation of loss. These are traditionally considered exclusively human abilities. But is that really true? Science decided to investigate, and the discoveries surprised even the most experienced researchers. A pioneering study conducted by the University of California in San Diego shed new light on the issue. In 2014, psychologist Christine Harris and her colleague Caroline Provost conducted a now-famous experiment. Do dogs feel jealous when their owner shows affection to another being in front of them? The methodology was simple but brilliant. Owners were instructed to ignore their own dogs temporarily and show affection in 3 different scenarios. 1. To a realistic-looking stuffed dog that barked and moved. 2. To a strange inanimate object, a decorative pumpkin. 3. To a children's book, reading aloud as if interacting with a child. What the researchers observed was incredible. When the owner's pet or spoke to the toy dog, the real dogs reacted intensely. More than 80% tried to physically intervene. Some stood between their owner and the object. Others tried to push the rival away. There were barks, whines, lifted paws, fixed stares, and even aggressive behavior. Or in several cases, the dogs attempted to bite or knock over the toy dog. By contrast, when the owners interacted with the pumpkin or the book, the dogs showed almost no reaction. The conclusion? Dogs display clear and specific behaviors when they sense they're losing their owner's attention to a potential competitor. In other words, the emotion of jealousy, or at least a behavioral equivalent, really does exist in the canine world. And it wasn't an isolated study. Other research in different countries supports the theory. In an article published in the Journal of Comparative Psychology, scientists observed that domestic dogs behave differently when their humans show affection to another real animal compared to objects or unfamiliar people. They observe more closely, interrupt more often, and seem visibly upset. But science also wants to understand why this happens. The most accepted explanation is that canine jealousy is linked to the instinct of social bonding, a survival system that ensures closeness to key figures. Think of a dog's ancestors, wolves. In a pack, maintaining a bond with the leader is a matter of survival. Those who lose status, lose resources, safety, even access to food. That logic still applies, even at home. To your dog, you are the pack leader. You are their source of protection, food, affection, and emotional security. When they feel that bond is being threatened, they react. Not out of malice, not out of selfishness, but out of pure instinct. And that brings us to a powerful reflection. If dogs emotionally react to the possibility of losing our affection, it shows how deeply they love us and how much they rely on our attention to feel whole. Jealousy, in this context, isn't a flaw. It's a demonstration of a deep bond. A silent or sometimes loud cry for love. It's as if your dog is saying, "Notice me. Choose me. Love me too." And when science finds this kind of response in creatures so different from us, it also reminds us of something essential. Love doesn't need language. It only needs connection. Share this video with your friends who love dogs. 3. How to identify jealousy in your dog. Have you ever noticed how your dog sometimes changes behavior when you give attention to another animal, a visitor, or even someone in your family? How suddenly they appear in the middle of the room between you and the person, staring intensely. How they bark for no apparent reason, or act clingier, begging for affection. It might seem simple, but it's not. Often, it's jealousy showing itself right before your eyes. Canine jealousy, just like ours, doesn't always appear obviously. It doesn't shout or speak, but it expresses itself. And it does it with what the dog has. The body, the eyes, the gestures. Sometimes they'll insert themselves into a hug. Other times, bark nonstop when you try to play with another pet. In some cases, they might push the rival with their snout, lie between you, or try to get your attention with toys, whining, or excessive licking. It's like they're saying, "Hey, what about me? Did you forget me?" This cry for attention can become persistent. Jealous dogs often watch their owners more closely, follow every step, give suspicious looks when someone gets close. And if they feel ignored for too long, they might react even more strongly. Low growls, possessiveness, protective behavior. In many homes, this shows up when a new pet arrives, a baby is born, or a new partner moves in, and the dog starts to silently compete for the same emotional space. In more extreme cases, jealousy can turn into destructive behaviors. A well-behaved dog may start peeing indoors, chewing on things, crying when you leave, or even refusing to eat. They may lose their appetite, oversleep, or seem down as if they're truly sad. Because they are. To them, jealousy is like the fear of losing you. And it hurts. Some dogs become clingy, following you everywhere. Others isolate themselves, becoming distant. Each reacts differently, but the underlying feeling is the same. Insecurity. They feel like the love they receive is at risk. They sense that the bond they've built with you may be threatened. And to a dog, losing that bond is like losing the ground beneath their feet. It's important to remember they don't know how to handle that feeling alone. They don't know how to rationalize, talk, or reflect. They feel intensely and react the only way they can. That's why we, as their guardians, need to pay attention. We need to recognize that our dog's weird behavior might actually be a cry for help, a plea for inclusion, a desperate attempt to hold on to the place they earned in our hearts. If you've ever seen your dog act differently when someone new comes close, or when another animal gets near you, maybe they're just trying to say, in their own way, "Don't forget me. Love me too." And maybe the greatest proof of love you can give back is exactly that, to look into their eyes, acknowledge the pain, and show with affection that they've never stopped being special. Turn on notifications on our channel and be the first to enjoy our next videos. For jealousy or a need for connection, when we see a dog showing signs of jealousy, it's common to think they're just being possessive or clingy. Sometimes we even find it funny. Other times we get annoyed. But behind all that reaction, there's something much more delicate than it seems. A deep need for connection, security, and belonging. What many call jealousy might actually be the fear of losing the most important place in the dog's life, the emotional space they earn by your side. Dogs are social beings by nature. Since their ancestors, they've been shaped to live in groups, cooperate, follow a leader, and bond with members of their pack. In a domestic environment, that pack is you. And over time, they learn to connect with you in an intense, unique, almost symbiotic way. You are the one who feeds them, protects them, walks them, plays with them, gives them affection. Everything they love and everything they understand as a safe life is in you. And that's where the fear of losing comes from. That fear may appear in subtle ways. When you get home and pet another animal first. When you receive a visitor and your dog notices your tone of voice changes, that you're distracted, that you're not including them as before. Or when a baby arrives, or a new boyfriend or girlfriend, a new pet, and your affection routine changes. To us, it may seem like a natural shift, but to the dog, it feels like their world has been shaken. They don't understand human priorities. They don't comprehend that affection is just being shared, not taken away. What they feel is absence, and in that absence, their heart fills with doubt. They start to wonder, in their own way, am I still important? Am I still loved? Am I being replaced? They can't express those questions in words, but they express them through actions. And that's when jealous behaviors appear not as misbehavior, but as an attempt to reconnect. When a dog barks, nudges someone with their snout, places themselves between you and another person, cries, destroys objects, refuses to eat, or acts insecurely, they're trying to get your attention. They're asking you to see them. They're urgently seeking confirmation that they're still part of what matters most to them, your life. That's why treating jealousy as a flaw is a big mistake. Canine jealousy is, in fact, a legitimate emotional response. It's an alert saying, "Hey, something's changing and I'm scared." Sometimes it happens because the dog hasn't learned to deal with the presence of others in their emotional territory. Other times, because they always had your full attention and now have to learn to share. But in most cases, it simply arises because the bond was shaken and they don't know how to cope with that on their own. And that's why the guardian's role is so important. It's not about suppressing or ignoring the behavior, but understanding its root and acting with empathy to show the dog, with consistent actions, that they are still loved, that even if the routine changes, the affection remains, that they haven't been left out, they're just learning to live with new realities. Jealousy can ease when the dog feels they still have their place, when they're included, when they receive quality attention, when they know they can trust the bond they've built with you. Because in the end, they're not asking for exclusivity. They're asking for belonging. They just want to know that, despite everything, they're still yours. 5. How to deal with it. Dealing with your dog's jealousy isn't just about correcting a behavior. It's first and foremost an invitation to look deeper. Because what seems like just a possessive reaction is actually a silent cry for attention, security, and love. The first thing we need to understand is that yelling, scolding, or ignoring the dog doesn't solve the problem and often makes it worse. When you react with anger or indifference, the message they receive is rejection, and that only fuels the fear behind the jealousy. They feel like they're losing space in your heart, and you confirm that loss with distance or punishment. The result? They feel even more insecure, and the emotional reaction may intensify, turning into a vicious cycle. So where to start? Start with empathy. Observe the triggers. Pay attention to when and how the jealous behavior appears. Is it when you give attention to someone else? When you pet another animal? When visitors arrive? Every dog has their own sensitive point, and understanding that is crucial, because only then will it be possible to act assertively and build emotional security. Then, offer quality attention. That's different from just being physically present. A dog knows when you're truly there with them. A distracted petting session, done while holding your phone, doesn't have the same value as a moment of full presence with eye contact, voice, and genuine touch. And it doesn't have to be all day. Just 15 minutes a day of real connection, of listening, of being present. That makes all the difference. It's also essential not to unintentionally reinforce jealous behavior. If the dog always gets attention every time they bark, nudge, or interrupt a moment with someone else, they learn that acting that way works. And without meaning to, you're teaching them that jealousy is a path to get what they want. The ideal approach is to reward moments of calm, respect, and patience. Reinforce the good behavior, not just react to the bad. Another fundamental step is including the dog in changes. If you brought another pet home, don't exclude the first one. Maintain the routines you had. Invite them to participate. Give affection to both, but value one-on-one moments even more. Show, with consistent gestures, that the bond between you remains strong. If you had a baby or entered a new relationship, help your dog associate those new presences with positive experiences. Give treats while holding the baby. Play with them when your partner is nearby. This creates positive emotional connections. Instead of feeling like they're losing space, your dog starts to see the new as something good. And remember, patience is everything. Emotions don't change overnight. Your dog won't stop being jealous just because you said once that you love them. They need to feel it repeatedly. Experience in the routine, in your gaze, in your touch, in the tone of your voice. If the behaviors are very intense, or if the dog shows signs of severe anxiety, it may be necessary to seek professional help. A positive trainer, a canine behavior specialist, or even a veterinarian can assess the situation more deeply and create an appropriate intervention plan. And there's absolutely no shame in that. On the contrary, seeking help is an act of love and responsibility. Dealing with a dog's jealousy is, deep down, taking care of love. It's protecting the foundation of the bond you built with them. It's showing, every day, that your love doesn't depend on exclusivity, but on truth, trust, and real presence. When the dog understands that the guardian's heart is still open to them, even in the midst of changes, jealousy loses strength. The fear goes away. And what remains is what was always most beautiful in this relationship: mutual loyalty, unconditional love, and the certainty that a dog's love, when respected, is never lost. Comment below on our video. Is your dog jealous? If so, that's a good sign, believe me. They're in love with you.